Welcome into Hoops Forum, a production of Radius Athletics and a Quick Timeout podcast. I'm Tony Miller, and back again this week is my co-host Randy Sherman. Before we get going, thanks to our sponsors over at 323 Sports. Summer camp season is here. If you're in need of camp t-shirts, basketballs, or other equipment, whatever it is, 323 Sports has what you need at great prices. I've been using them for years now, and they've done a great job with all the camps that I've run. You won't regret ordering from these guys. To find out more about what they can do for your program, visit 323sports.com, or you can contact a sales rep at sales@323sports.com. They'll be sure to do it right for your summer camp program. This is the thick of the NBA Finals. We're already 3 games into the series, and we last week discussed some of the things that you can learn from watching the NBA game and some of the things that maybe you can apply for your team, for your program. And Randy, let's go ahead and start out with that. Let's just talk through what those things are. And today, then we'll kind of take those things that we talked about and try to break down a few of the clips here from the first 3 games of the NBA Finals.
You're testing my memory here. Let me see if I can rattle off all 5 of them without error. First one, widen your positioning. So we talked about how in the NBA game, of course, they're aided by as players tend to arrange themselves around the 3-point line, they're aided by a wider 3-point line, a higher 3-point line. But even still, what you see is sort of like an enlarged offensive spacing in the NBA level. That's something that you could ask of your players to stand higher, wider, don't crowd the line, things like that. Number 2 is pick up the pace, I believe. With the 24-second shot clock, and you see NBA teams, really do a good job of within the first, 4 to 6 seconds of the shot of regaining possession of the ball, they're usually into some sort of action. There's not a whole lot of walking the ball up the court. Of course, sometimes there is, but that picking up the pace would be point number 2. I may get these out of order, but I think 3 was you're gonna have to help me. I know 1 is exploiting the mismatch. I think that was the final one. There was where with all the switching and things like that, we get a little on a big on a little, or we play and we really pick on that advantage. The idea also of, say, maybe using a lineup to create a mismatch for the other team's lineup, like you hear it talk of like going big or going small, and to sort of like counter or match of your opponent's decisions. So we've got those 3. 2 more.
Clean up your shot selection.
Oh yeah, clean up your shot selection. So most I think I showed a graphic last week of the 100 most common shot attempts in the NBA, and they're all around the 3-point line or tightly packed around the charged circle right there at the rim. So the idea of playing rim or 3, all connected to your spacing and positioning, keeping the floor spread. So we either score at the rim. If help comes at the rim, we kick, and that kick goes beyond the 3-point line, and we usually pay that off with a 3. So that idea of cleaning up your shot selection. 1 more.
Last one is shoot it or move it.
Shoot it or move it. Yes, the mindset of like sort of like quick decisions, shooting on the catch rather than holding the ball and things like that, which has just become so common in the NBA that it's just all you see, really. So, so those are 5 tips for playing like the pros. Sorry, I didn't get them all 5 off the top of my head without a cheat sheet, but I think you've got some video clips pulled where I'm sure we'll see examples of most of those, if not all of those.
So we want to show those of you that are just listening to this, you probably want to go back and watch the video version of that. You can look at that at the Radius Athletics YouTube page, and we'll have some clips of those also on Twitter. But just wanted to kind of break down some of these. Coaches have enjoyed watching some of the breakdown clips that we have of some of the things that we've talked about. And these, we just kind of wanted to show some things that incorporated 1, 2, 3, I think a couple of them, maybe even 4 or 5 of what we just reviewed there. Let me go ahead and pull this up here. First one here, we've talked a long time ago, but about multiple actions, just making the defense guard those consecutive actions, back-to-back actions. And in addition to that, creating those mismatches through the switches. I think both
Mm-hmm.
teams, I don't recall seeing very many and kind of hedges. I think everything, ball screens and off ball screens, a lot of times are if they're true screens, are straight switches. And you'll see that here through this one. This is one that kind of came down right away. First play of the game for the Boston Celtics. Pinned down immediately, followed by a ball screen, and then you start to see the dominoes fall there.
Yeah, I'm not seeing the video, Tony.
Oh, my fault.
There we go.
There. Can you see that now?
Yeah, I got it now. Yeah, so basically the ball screen gets 2 on the ball. So there's your first domino, to use your word, was there. Thing I like here too is they sort of screen for the player that's going into the ball screen. It's a good concept I like. I call it arriving alone. It's a way to get the ball screener, to arrive alone without his defender at the ball screen. So it looks like Rob Williams is going to screen for Smart, maybe, who's going to come into the ball screen. Didn't really catch a whole lot of the guy, so he didn't really arrive alone. But that concept of like, we're trying to screen for the guy who's going to go set a ball screen in hopes that he'll arrive alone. But yeah, here there's you've got it paused perfectly where you can see that a good, effective physical body on body screen by Smart there is going to result in 2 guys having to get to Tatum. And once that's all we need. Once we got 2 on the ball, even for a split second, this would go to that shoot it or move it, play like the pro tip, where, man, that's all we need. Just that split second of 2 guys went to the ball, and Tatum makes the hook pass back to Smart, and now we got an advantage. That forces the stunt from Clay, shoot it or move it. He's going to move it because Clay stunts. Now we got a big advantage 3.
We talked about this last week, just the evolution of Jason Tatum, and very clear, especially in games 2 or 3, that the Warriors were wanting to send 2 at Tatum, especially in like the ball screen, at least stunting him or maybe even trapping him. And his ability to find the open man has dramatically improved over the last year or 2.
Yeah, and that's a trust thing, right? Like I know the right play. If I've got 2 on me, it's to move it along, but I've got to have trust and be okay with, hey, I might not see it again, but this is the right play. I've got 2 on me. I'm going to move it, and the advantage is going to move, and it's going to be someone else in green and white getting the shot, and we don't care who scores as long as Boston scores. Right. So it's a trust thing.
We have talked extensively about 5-out, and I will try to link several of those conversations down in the description. But there's 2 clips here back to back, kind of out of a 5-out. The Celtics not necessarily always truly 5-out as they come down. They will sometimes, I think, Williams, depending on if he catches it early, if he rebounds it early or rebounds it as the primary rebounder, is the guy who will end up going 4-out, 1 in, and they have an entire 41 series that they run and have done that since Brad Stevens was there. But this one kind of transitioned down into 5-out, and really quick play.
Yeah, just
what a great read.
I think, yeah, dribble at. So some good pointers for the dribble at there. Really good, an exemplary clip for a dribble at, for both the cutter and the deliverer. One, the dribbler, he dribbles at the defender's back, not at his teammate. He's dribbling right at the defender's back. You can see if you just drew a line from where he's dribbling, he's dribbling at the defender and not necessarily his teammate. So that's a good tip. Second tip, I would say Jaylen Brown, I believe, who's the cutter here, it does a great job of waiting till he's dribbled at and sort of like shows the right amount of patience of not going too soon, just goes right on time. And then I'd say the third tip is the pass itself is a one-hand pass off the dribble with a dribbling hand. So the dribbler has the ball and just right off the dribble with one hand, he skips rocks. We call it skipping rocks. He's like skipping rocks on a lake. He skips rocks with one hand and pushes the ball through. Probably aren't going to have the timing's not going to work if he's wanting to touch the ball with the offhand and pick up his dribble. He has to deliver that right off the bounce. So exemplary dribble really, really good clip there, early transition. And the 5-out spacing in transition affords the back cut, the space in the green painted area there for him to cut into for the score.
Mm-hmm. I was talking to a group of younger players yesterday. The ability to play with change of pace. His Brown is moving to the corner, but he freezes and kind of causes Peyton to freeze for a second. That allows him to create just a half a step that opens up that window for Marcus Smart to make the extra pass to him.
A coach who I believe is one of the great coaches in the game. In fact, it's ironic because coincidental that we're talking about. I'm going to mention him, and Steph Curry's on the screen, is Bob McKillop from Davidson. He calls it having an act as a player, and you see Steph Curry, who played for him at Davidson, obviously is great about oh, I'm just kind of walking here and I'm walking, and then all of a sudden, boom, I'm cut into a screen, or boom, I cut into a back cut or something like that. Of this sort of deliberate nonchalance. I'm deliberately just sort of okay, yeah, and then but I see what's about to happen. He's going to dribble at me and I'm going to back cut. But my deliberate nonchalance sort of baits that defender into losing sight of the ball, whatever, thinking in I have an act. I acted as if I wasn't going to be involved in something, but I really am. Yeah.
That's a great way to communicate it to players. That's good. All right, next one here is another 5-out. This one's from the Warriors this time. I put this one in here. I don't know that's anything that we've ever talked about, but a lot of this, Game 3 we've mentioned before, as you get further into the playoffs, you kind of get narrowed in and zeroed in on how you're playing individual players. And we talked about it with Tatum of them double teaming. I know coaches will watch us and say, well, that's bad defense by White. He shouldn't be out that far on Klay Thompson. But, as the series goes on, understanding who a player is and playing one guy a certain way and another guy another way. And I think the Warriors intentionally taking advantage of the overplay on Klay Thompson, almost I think it's Porter there in the corner as a brush screen and lifts everybody up. And I thought it was a really interesting way to create a double gap on the floor where we usually don't think about a double gap. So when he comes and lifts up out of the corner, it looks like it's going to be a ball screen for Curry. And it may have intended to be that. But as the screener lifts up out of the corner, now you have that whole side of the floor that's wide open for Klay to create an advantage without the basketball. And to your point about Marcus Smart and the pass from Curry this time is very similar, and it creates the same kind of situation, only this time for the Warriors.
Okay. Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. It almost looks like it's going to be a flare screen for Klay, and that Derek White being hugged out there makes him sort of ripe to get that screen. And he sort of curls the flare screen as White trails him off of it.
Which is how you teach defenders to defend a flare screen a lot of times.
Yeah, can be. Especially with one for a great shooter, you go under it, you're in trouble, right? So what I like here, what I see here is another example of penetration, this time with the pass. So we tend to associate that word penetration with dribble penetration, but this is an example too. When Klay curls the flare, Steph delivers the pass, which basically the reception of the pass creates a paint touch, a penetration. That's a penetrating pass. Now Smart has to help off the dunker spot with Draymond. Jaylen Brown doesn't help the helper. Doesn't cover down. Easy dunk.
Yeah, that was really cool. And I thought you could use that as a set play call if you wanted to pick on an aggressive defender, or just kind of mix things up. And you could do that one out of 5 out as well. So I thought I'd throw that one in here.
Not to throw shade, but this might be Draymond's only basket. Like, right?
Yeah, game 3 was pretty rough for him.
Yeah.
All right. We've talked about drag screens several times along the way and have full episodes devoted to that. But just a really quick clip of a drag screen, but also one that creates a mismatch, like we've talked about from learning from the pros. And then you can see very quickly how Steph uses that mismatch and puts Horford kind of on skates a little bit and creates a scoring opportunity for himself.
I think you could also categorize this and pick up the pace too. That other tip about how sort of like right off the transition moment, they're into an action. It looks like it's not fully organized as a defense yet. Horford feels like he has to switch on to Curry, and that ain't gonna work. that's not sustainable. But because of the pace and the earliness of the action and a sort of attacking when the defense is still forming and organizing, the switch just kind of had to happen, or Horford had to at least momentarily take the ball, and Steph has him on skates and he stops and pops. So mid-range pull up by Steph. So this wouldn't qualify for clean up your shot selection, rim or three, but Steph gets to shoot from where he wants. So, but really it's the right play. He backs him up and Horford, I'm sorry, is sort of giving ground and that's it. He's right for the stop and pop. He can't get there. So, I think still some of the points we talked about last week apply here. Pick up the pace, meaning not only run the floor, but get into an action in the first, quarter of the shot clock, the first few seconds of it, which you see here. They're running to the corners. So you've got that point of widen your positioning. So you can see 2 players that are headed to the corners and so still these consistent themes keep bubbling up.
The increased pace for us this year was probably one of the biggest improvements in our offense, and we saw the most benefit from it because it allowed us to your point about not playing against a set defense. As the defense was still getting organized, we were already creating advantages, and the advantages were easier to create because players weren't ready for them. They weren't standing there with their brain ready to move on to the next thing. They were still trying to point and talk or find their man. And it allowed us to create easier advantages. Doesn't mean you had to shoot it earlier, although we did get more scoring opportunities earlier in the shot clock. But it allowed us to create advantages faster within our half court offense.
Yeah, I think the principle there would be to sort of attack when your opponent is most vulnerable, and in transition defense would be when they're most vulnerable.
All right, next one here. We've said several times, but attacking the mismatch. And this one, in the past, I've heard pundits of the NBA, they don't like the one-on-one basketball, but one-on-one where a advantage has been created from a mismatch, I think is a very effective strategy. And Jason Tatum's done a great job of that. And they've picked on Steph Curry a little bit in pick and rolls to get him to switch. So this is post-pick. Now you have the mismatch. And now Tatum has the ability to go right at Steph.
Right. So, I mean, the pundits wouldn't maybe fully understand. I don't know. The idea that I mean, this is game 3 of the finals. There's really no secrets. There's no you're not gonna trick anybody, and it oftentimes is about my best player. That this is really all that's left to sort of manufacture a shot. Sometimes is we got to get this guy guarding this guy and exploit that. So
sometimes the advantage isn't space, and it isn't whether or not a defender is in between me and the basket. Sometimes it's size, strength, and ability.
Correct. And as great as Steph is, he's no physical match for someone much larger and stronger than him and Tatum. So, that this is an example of exploiting the mismatch, and you see it over and over again, especially in playoff basketball. Is when you hear this phrase, all other things being equal. Well, at this point, they are. All right, like there, any advantage is slim and very granular. So if we can get this guy guarded, this guy, that's an advantage. So here they've done that. They've got Steph on Tatum. Tatum bigger, stronger, and able to sort of bully Steph to get where he wants on the court, and there's really not much that we can do about that. So the Warriors have to think of ways. We want to exploit the advantage offensively. Defensively, we want to avoid the disadvantage. So they got to get creative in ways to stay out of this situation.
And they've done a great job of surrounding him with shooters, all four of those guys there on the perimeter. If you send a second guy, now you're choosing to potentially give up 3 points rather than 2 there in the paint.
And I saw a possession. It was actually the Celtics on defense where it was game 3. They had built the lead. Looked like they were kind of in control of the game, and the Warriors were running good stuff, man. The ball was going side to side, screen, pass, chase, screen, like really highly executed and well-designed stuff was happening on the court. The Celtics are just switching it all. Like they're switching it all. They're communicating. They're talking. They're switching uphill, and like all this good offense was sort of like neutralized by all the switching. And really, you get to the end of the shot clock, and all that's left is sort of the player with the ball having no other recourse other than going one-on-one because of the effective defense. So sometimes that going one-on-one isn't just like the offense sort of like punting and like not playing well. Like I remember this possession ended with a Wiggins mid-range to highly contested miss. But that was all that was left. They were running good offense. The Celtics were just switching, pointing, talking, taking, and tick-tock, and now Wiggins has got the ball and has really no other recourse than to take that shot. So you got to watch with a little trained eye sometimes.
All right, this is the last one here. We've talked a little bit about zone offense. It's been a while, but matchup zone defense is becoming more popular in the NBA, and I think probably will become a little bit more popular in high school. The reply that I've gotten from a lot of coaches is we just don't know exactly how to teach it. I think they know all the principles that go behind it, but they don't necessarily know how to get their players to understand it. So maybe that's something we talk about in the future. But this is from an offensive perspective and just the ball movement that the Celtics play with, and also the positioning within the half court.
Okay. Oh yeah, a lot of our principles of playing like the pros on display here. And good offense, zone offense. So I would encourage coaches. Sometimes I talk to coaches who are like wanting to sort of like fight the defense. Sometimes they're facing a zone defense and they want to get the ball, and they feel like their team is, I'll use all the cliches here, settling for threes, and that's one cliche. And we need to, next cliche, get the ball inside. Like there's no magic get the ball inside button, right? So, and this team is playing zone. So they're basically saying, well, we're not letting you get the ball inside with the dribble. Like that's why we're playing zone, right? So I would encourage coaches to think of penetration against zone most often is going to come via the pass. And that's what we see here. We need to make a penetrating pass that like you make passes through windows in the zone to hit a player cutting into the zone or your high post or whatever. And that's what you see here on the first, that boom right there. We've penetrated. Now we got 2 on the ball. Now we're just into our advantage, rules, like after the advantage. So we got 2 on the ball. Now it goes out. We're gonna shoot it or move it, right? That's another of our play like the pros principles. Closeout comes. We make another penetrating pass. We're gonna look to score at the rim. Help? Nope, no help. So he splits them. So it's that idea of same goal, penetrate, but against zone, it often comes with a pass.
Mm-hmm. Most of the people that are listening to this already know this, but I was talking to a couple coaches this week, and just the idea of they're still explaining it as being unselfish. And that's fine, but I think it's probably more profitable in helping your players understand when you teach them if two come at me, somebody is open, and helping them understand like to look where the help comes from. And it seems very simple to us, but I still think a lot of players they don't understand that yet.
Well, it happens quickly and it happens in real time. So coaches sometimes could be more empathetic to those players who are out there on the court. Like we've got the remote control, we can see it on film, but like it happens very quickly, and that takes experience and time and
And a lot of
playing like the pros. Yeah, playing like the pros. Well, they've played a lot. These guys have a PhD in basketball.
Right.
By the time they've made it this far,
Right. So we'll allow you to cheat here. Randy, what any either adjustments that you would make or predictions that you would make about the NBA finals here going forward?
I'd say I would say adjustments I would make if I were Golden State would be more ball screen. Like that seems to be, it's not really that what they're historically known for. They're known for like all the off ball movement and screening, but it seems like that's what's sort of like being most fruitful for them, especially when it involves Steph. So at this point, we're just trying to win the Larry O'Brien. So we may have to like do more of what's not us to get that done in this particular year. Don't like I know he needs the rest, but like he's got July and August to rest, man. Like Steph's got to play. Like that, sometimes they really lose those minutes. So I think that would be Golden State. I would say for Boston is Tatum has been good but not great. So we got to get him going. He's had a lot of involvement. He hasn't done a lot of the scoring he's known for, but let's see if we can get him going in the first quarter in one of these games. And especially this one, because Boston would grab control of the series right now. They win tonight. So
I think it's been great to see bench players come in and contribute. And as we've discussed previously on this show, being able to develop another probably coaching superpower is not focusing on the 5 best players that you have or the 3 best players that you have, but being willing to spend more time developing those other guys so that when needed, when a star isn't playing as well or gets injured, you have somebody that you can rely on, that you can fall back on.
Yeah. I think that's super valuable and something that I always try to impart on the coaches I work with. It's like always be prepared for the rainy day it's going to come. So the idea of a team's sort of floor being maybe more important than their ceiling.
Yeah. We'll have all these clips linked in the description down below. I know some of them were hard to see. You can also find those on YouTube, and I'll have links to those as well. Thanks to all of you who joined us this week. If you missed any part of the live show, you can go back and watch or listen to any part of that. Visit Radius Athletics on YouTube to watch the full interview, or you can go to any podcast platform and search Hoops Forum, and there you'll find the audio version of the show. Appreciate Randy and his analysis and what he brings to us each week. For Tony Miller, I'm Randy Sherman. We'll talk to you again next time on Hoops Forum.